The new full-sized Wholecloth Morris Tote sewing pattern comes out tomorrow. It's just like the Mini Morris, except of course it's bigger, and I've added a few hardware features to make it even more versatile. The most important one is this adjustable strap. You can use this strap on the Morris Tote, and it transfers really easily to the Mini Morris Tote, or you could use it to make a new strap for a ready-made bag. Today I'm going to walk you step by step for how to sew this adjustable strap. If you've already watched my video for how to make the straight grain binding that I use in this pattern, you're going to notice a lot of similarities. It's not a coincidence. I was going for some symmetry with the instructions, and I figure once you learn a technique, you might as well use it again. I think this is a pretty versatile technique, so I'm giving it its own video. The full tutorial for sewing both of these bags will be out next Thursday. And you know when it is, I'll link to it in the notes below the video. I'm Kristi from Wholecloth Patterns. You can find a link to the rest of my bag sewing patterns in the notes below the video. And of course, click subscribe so you can find me again. Now, let's get started. To make your own strap, you'll need woven fabric, interfacing, something to mark the fabric with, a ruler, scissors, and an iron. Just going to put this back because it's still hot. You'll also need bag hardware. I have 2 claw clips with a bar to fit my 1-inch strap, and I have a length adjuster that is also sized for a 1-inch strap. I'll link to my favorite sources for bag hardware in the notes below the video. Starting with the wrong side of my fabric facing, the first thing I need to do is find the grain of my fabric, and the grain runs parallel to the selvage edge of the fabric. I could use the selvage edge to cut out my strap, but it's a little more efficient for this piece of fabric that I have to cut my strap across the grain. So you could cut it parallel to the selvage edge with the grain, or across the grain, which would be perpendicular to this selvage edge. Either way, you get a very strong strap, and the weight of the bag will be pulling on the grain of the fabric, so there shouldn't be any stretch in your strap. I'm going to turn down the cut edge of my fabric with the wrong sides together and just make a loose fold that aligns this selvage edge and has a 90-degree angle at the folded corner. Then I know that I'm perpendicular to the grain of the fabric and my fold is on the cross grain. You can also sometimes see the individual threads that make up the fabric and see that your fold is parallel to those threads. I'm just going to check and make sure there's no give in the fold of my fabric. That's another way to know that you're on the grain. If you're off the grain and you pull on the fabric, it has quite a bit of stretch. Next, I'm going to iron this fold to set the crease into the fabric. I'm using fabric that's 56 inches wide, and I'm going to use that full width for my strap so that I can cut it in one continuous piece. So I'm going to continue to press this fold across the width of my fabric. Next, I'm going to measure 2 inches from this fold and make marks the whole way across the fabric. This is double the width of my 1-inch strap. So if you're making a strap that's a different size, you can adjust your width accordingly. Next, I'm going to cut along this line I made 2 inches from the fold. Here is my 2-inch strip of fabric to make the strap, and mine is the full width of the fabric, which in this case is 56 inches. If your fabric isn't this wide, you might need to join 2 strips together to get the length that you want. To do that, I open up the fold in my strips, and I position them with right sides together, overlapping them at one end so they make a 90-degree angle to each other. You can see where they overlap, they kind of make a square. I'm going to sew from this upper corner down to this lower corner on that square, making a diagonal from point to point. Here you can see how I've sewn across these two pieces. When I open up the seam, it makes a continuous strip of fabric with a diagonal connection in the middle. Having this diagonal seam prevents there from being one big bump in the middle of your strap, especially if you're using a length adjuster. It just makes it a little bit more of a gradual transition when you're going over that seam with the length adjuster. Now I'm going to grade the seam to about 1/4 of an inch and press the seam to one side. I'm going to fold my strip in half again and just make sure that the crease is set in the strip. Now I can go ahead and use this just like I would the continuous piece. Once you have a strap of your desired length, you might want to pause here and reinforce your strap with some interfacing. This is a 4-ounce denim fabric, and it's very durable fabric, but it's not very rigid, and I don't want my strap to get crumpled up after a lot of use. So I am going to fuse some interfacing to this fabric. If I were using 8 or 10-ounce canvas, I might not use interfacing at all. And when I'm not sure, I make a little swatch with the interfacing and the fabric to see what they feel like when they're used together. Today, I'm going to use this strip of medium weight interfacing, and I'm going to fuse it to one side of the strap. I'm basing this decision on what I have enough of in my stash. If I only had lightweight interfacing, I would probably fuse it to the full width of the strap just to get that extra durability. So don't worry too much about buying a specific product. Experiment with what you have, and you can probably work something out. I'm going to go ahead and fuse this to my strap. Now that I've interfaced the length of my strap, I'm ready to shape it. I'm going to fold one long edge toward the wrong side of the fabric until it's just shy of this center crease. And then I'm going to press that fold into the length of the fabric. Now I'm going to repeat that step with the other side. I'm going to fold this long edge toward the center until it's just short of that center crease, and then press this fold into the strap the full length of the fabric. With that second fold complete, I'm going to refold my strap along my first center fold, and I'm going to give the whole strap a good press to really set all the creases, and I'm going to pin or clip along this open edge of the strap. Now I'm ready to sew the strap together. I'm going to top stitch along this open edge about 1/8 of an inch from this outer fold. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the closed side too. And remember, for top stitching, you want to use a little bit of a longer stitch than you would for regular sewing. So I'm going to adjust my machine to about a 3mm stitch length. I've finished the top stitching on the length of my strap. Next, we'll attach the hardware. I'm going to start by attaching the length adjuster. I'll take one end of my strap, and I'm going to make about a 1/4 inch fold and press it. And then I'll make another fold about 1 inch from that first fold and press it again. So here I have the 2 folds pressed into the end of my strap, and I'm going to thread the length adjuster onto the strap so that the center bar is at this second fold. You can see how the strap wraps around that center bar, and I've kind of made a loop that the center bar is in the middle of. Next, I'm going to stitch along this first fold about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the fold to secure the hardware in the loop. Next, I'm going to thread one of these claw clips onto the strap. I have my length adjuster and the strap continues through the claw clip. The claw clip is facing out away from the strap. I'm going to feed this end of the strap through the top opening in the length adjuster. So at this point, it looks like this. And you can see on the length adjuster, I've kept the seam that I just stitched down inside this loop of fabric. Next, I'm going to thread the end of my strap down through the other side of the length adjuster. And this is the same way you would make the strap for the Wholecloth tether pouch, except instead of this length adjuster, we use a D-ring for that pattern. So I'm going to pull this loop tight through the length adjuster. And now you can see it's starting to look like the finished strap. When I attach the other claw clip to the strap, I'm going to do the same process that I did for the length adjuster. I'm going to make a 1/4 inch fold and press it, and then another fold 1 inch from that and press it. Now I'm going to thread my claw clip onto the strap so that it's kind of captured in that loop of fabric that I just made. And then we'll go ahead and stitch about 1/8 of an inch from this fold to hold the second claw clip onto the strap. Here's my finished strap that I'm going to use on my Morris tote. Thanks for sewing along with me today. If you make your own strap, be sure to let me know in the comments, or you could share it on Instagram. The full-size Morris Tote sewing pattern comes out tomorrow, and newsletter subscribers get the sweetest discount. If you'd like to become a subscriber, there's a link in the notes below the video. I'll be back next week with the full tutorial for how to make both of these bags. If you don't want to miss it, click subscribe to follow the Wholecloth Patterns sewing channel.